Alright guys, in this video we'll fly in turn pattern. Okay, we'll fly around the pattern in Öcheni, where we have the altitude at 300 feet. Of course, we'll fly it in our imagination, and let's get started. Imagine that we are at holding point, and I'm reporting Öcheni radio. Hotel Alpha Bravo Hotel Whiskey. At holding point, runway 17, ready for departure. Alright, then we line up and with full throttle, flaps at 10, full throttle, mixture for each of course. Alright, with full throttle, we increase our speed, and then our eyes, 1 second here, 1 second ahead, 1 second here, 2 seconds ahead. Alright, just like that, as we are pulling this yaw slightly, very slightly, extremely small amounts. Alright, and especially when I see that I have 55-60 knots, that is the moment that I start gaining altitude in the air. And after I gain altitude in the air, I put my nose parallel to the runway so that I keep gaining the speed. You do not put your nose down. You put your nose parallel to the runway. If you put your nose down, you might land brutally on the runway and you might die. Okay? You must put your parallel to the runway as you're gaining speed, as your speed is preferably on 70. Alright? And as you're turning, so as you have like 700 feet altitude over there or here, it doesn't matter, after you left the runway, when you have 700 or 800 altitude, you start turning the crosswind by reporting Hotel Alpha Bravo Hotel Whiskey, turning crosswind, runway 17. And you, of course, all at the same time, you keep climbing until 1300, because we have 300 already right here at the airport, plus 1000, it makes 1300 feet. As you are turning, as you are climbing, I mean, it doesn't matter whether you are turning or not, but while you are climbing or descending, what matters is that you always keep your speed at 70 for this plane, which is Cessna 150. And of course, you are checking your altitude from time to time, because once it is 1300, you will put the nose parallel to the ground, you stop climbing in physical terms, and after you gain a little bit more speed, which will increase up to 80 knots, then you will decrease RPM by pulling the throttle back until your RPM becomes 2200. All right. So then you keep flying at 1300 feet. Okay. With any speed, as long as you are not losing or gaining altitude, the speed might change from plane to plane. Okay. For this particular configuration of Cessna 150, the engine power might change, which will change your speed at cruise level. Okay, at cruising phase of the flight. What should not be changing is the vertical speed, which must be 0 as you're at cruise level or cruise flight, and your altitude, which are ultimately the same thing. And cruising RPM is generally, as I said, 2200 right here. You can check. Okay, and then if you want to fly level for a long while, you can adjust your trim depending on your nose attitude. Okay, so that you do not need to control the yaw so much throughout your flight. As you have completed the downwind route, you start turning for base, and you report there after you have seen the runway threshold from the angle 45. You report Hotel Alpha Bravo Hotel Whiskey, turning base, runway 17. And then you turn the base. After you complete your turn by checking your turn indicator, okay, as well as your speed at the same time, then you start landing procedure, which is making the carburetor on, carburetor heat on, RPM a little bit more back, which is decreasing the power up to 1700 RPM. All right. So after you put the landing lights on right here, and you check the airspeed, which must be around white arc, then you put the flaps 10. All right, right here. Actually, you will do it here, and you'll check this thing, and the white thing there must come to 10. All right. As you lower the flaps, the nose will get up. The nose will tend to get up, and for that you actually are supposed to squeeze the nose a little bit more down with the yaw. Okay, not so much, but slightly giving power. I mean, applying strength so that you put the nose down, which will keep your speed at 70 knots, which is your life during landing. Either you have 70 knots of speed, or you die like anything, and you will fall. All right, like anything heavy. You know what I mean? Okay, so after we started the final by reporting Hotel Alpha Bravo Hotel Whiskey turning final runway 17, you actually adjust your altitude there. With adjusting the altitude, I mean that considering the distance that you have until runway threshold, you must calculate your altitude and the distance that you have in your mind. So you must adjust and match the altitude you have and the speed ahead you are supposed to keep flying in the air. So while you are adjusting this in your mind, you are actually kind of estimating and gauging the altitude and the distance ahead. And if there is something wrong, if things are not going as you would expect, you can use the throttle right here. Either you increase power or you decrease power, depending on your altitude and distance relation. All right, it's kind of a ratio, right? Altitude and distance ratio. So in order to adjust that ratio, you can use the throttle, as well as flaps, which were 10. You can make them 20 if you need. You can make them 30 if you need, which is not so preferable or recommended, but you can make them even 40 if you need. If you are too high in the air, you can make the flaps on 40. All right. So, and as you approach the runway threshold, when you have 500 feet altitude from the ground, you pull the carburetor heat back, which makes it off, so that you might use it during touch and go or for any kind of reason to use this throttle, which gives power and fuel into the engine. And the moment you start flaring after leveling the pitch is the moment that you need to feel the height that you have from the ground by looking at 11 o'clock direction from your seat. And once you are looking at 11 o'clock direction during flare, you must be feeling and again estimating at the same time, so that you pull this yaw slightly towards yourself, slightly and slowly with small amounts, as you are touching down smoothly and softly on ground. I hope you have nice flights, safe flights, and smooth landings. Thank you for watching.